Hello, this is Gene. I want to talk a little bit today about Nick Fuentes. Full disclosure, I've been watching this guy probably for 8 years, 9 years now. It was at first I thought he was really funny back then when I was going through my own awakening of what's going on in the world, and he was on that side of it. He used to talk to like the alt-right people and stuff like that, and I was never in the alt-right, but I used to talk about it. I did a whole video, a series on the alt-right, topics in the alt-right, personalities in the alt-right, trying to find out more about what they really were. And I find that most of in there were on the left, and we're not really good people. And I'm not putting Nick into that group. Nick is a different type of thing. He's way up here. Those guys were down here, trying to talk about identitarian politics and identity politics on that side. But I was listening to him this morning. Normally I listen to him, at least his intro, after he shills all his stuff. I listen to the first 20, 30 minutes of that, and then he talks about the news. And sometimes I go back and listen, but it's just long enough for me while I'm walking, I can hear it. And today is Wednesday, is it 18th, 9th, 17th, 18th? So it was last year's or last night's, the second or the Tuesday's show. And if I can figure out how to do it, I'll post it below so you guys look at it. And I'm talking about the first 30 minutes of it or so, 40 minutes of it. And he just says that he was talking about some hit pieces that were out of him, and people are on Megyn Kelly's show saying things about him, saying that they don't understand why so many young men are following Nick, and they don't understand it. And of course, Nick says what he had to say, and I want to talk about that. And I agree with him about on the general oversight of what he's saying, the entire thing. Some of them I have some issues with, but then I think it's more generational than it is anything else. From his viewpoint, he's probably right, because he did kind of go after people my age and people older than me, and there's some real, what's the word here? There's reasons to do it. People from that generation still look at us and the boomers as people that bought a house for $20,000, and now that house is worth $100 million, and we don't want to give anything back to our kids and all that stuff. And that's all bullshit because we all do it. I mean, I can just go. I can list down how much money and stuff I've given to my kids, and almost all of them up to their 30s now. So it's not like I didn't take my wealth and not share it, because I absolutely have. And I'm not one of those people that says I'm going to keep it all to myself. I say to my father-in-law all the time, he has money. I said, if he wants to buy that toy that he wants, that car he wants, go ahead and fucking buy it, you know? And, as long as you pay it off, and if something happens to you, we'll take care of it. We're not going to let, eventually if his daughters want to sell it to get money from it, fine. But if that's what you want, go and do it. And so if you have the money, go and travel, go do things, and he does that. So that's good to see. And that's why he's still around in the 80s, and he's very active and stuff, because he's not sitting at home, not doing anything. And he is a boomer, right? And he has boomer takes. And sometimes I have to sit down with him and say, you understand what you're saying here? And he's an older man. He's going to be solid in what he believes. But I'll try to just let him know that there's other things to it. But anyway, let's talk about Nick. And I'm with him, especially the first part of this. There are a lot of people, and he brings up Megyn Kelly, that she has these people on here, and these people put a little hit pieces on Nick, or even informational pieces, because now Nick is everywhere. So they want to use that to get their own clicks, and that's how it is. That's how the game is. I don't have any problem with that. I do it when I go in here. I might put Nick on here, and maybe I'll get 500 people to watch me, but I don't get anything from it. Obviously, I don't have enough that I can get anything from YouTube. This is me just, as I said when I first started this channel years ago. I'm an old Generation X person that's trying to get my opinions out there, and really my whole thing on this team is to mentor young men, especially. And if women want to watch this, and I get a couple of women that come on here and said things, I want to do that as well. We have to understand what masculinity is, And that's where I think me and Nick probably a little bit off. But again, I think it's more generational. I mean, you got to understand where he's living right now and how feminism is just taking over women now. And these little words that come out of their mouth, like emotional labor and unpaid labor, these are fucking Marxist things. And all they do is they divide the sexes. But let's just say what the very beginning of what he had to say. So he's saying this, these people don't understand that everybody likes me now, and they all say the same things about me because I'm vile, I'm nasty, I'm one of the worst things. He's like, they must have like a thesaurus out, and all the bad things you can say about me, they put that down. And they don't understand why young men watch him. And they don't understand that because when they actually have these conversations about young men, they blame them, they shame them. When they go to these Turning Point USA things, or when Megyn Kelly goes on things, she basically has the same mind frame that the man has to put a woman up on a pedestal and do everything for that woman. That maybe she'll say something that the modern woman is not doing the right thing, but at the end of the day, she always blames the men in the thing. And it's always interested me that she didn't care anything about the trans issue till she thought maybe it might impact her kids, her girls, and she'll say on the side note, her boys as well. The same thing as Riley Gaines and people like that. Yeah, she shouldn't have to go against a man when she's ready, but this woman has made all her career on this. And these are not, what I'm trying to say is this, these are not patriarchal women. These are career women that put their career first before everything else. They married later, they had kids later, and they don't understand why are people upset that I want to be able to do both. I mean, she had a whole story when she said that we can have both. These are not real conservative, traditional women. They're just not. And they continually complain when things don't go their way. And the biggest issue I have is like, she's in her 50s. How would she ever even know what somebody's in her 20s who has a young white man living in a city, what they even think about? She might have kids at that age, but you know what? They're probably watching Nick as well. So again, it's women on the outside, people who think that they're in the patriarchy or they would not be submissive. They're not really traditional women, and they're littered on the right. You know, Cindy Watson and these people like that claim they're on the right. And then when they have this conversation with Nick, there's a whole video that they have where they actually sat down and Nick is just looking at her and she's just saying the same shit over and over again like women do. They talk in circles and they can't get to the point. And at the end of the day, they want men to be strong and men to provide me and men to do all that shit. And a lot of men want that as well. But you can't do it if you're not going to be a traditional woman. And that's the problem thing they don't understand. You can't sit there and say, man, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, you got to do that. But I'm still going to be a career person, and I'm going to say, no, we'll have kids later on, and my career is first, and everything else we do. That's not being traditional for them. You want that for men, so that's one part of it. The guys that are like in the red pill movement, they're like, I can't get they're not traditional, so why should I be traditional? If they're going to sell their body out there on OnlyFans, why do I have to do anything? Why do I have to marry them? Because if they take half my money, these are things that need to be fixed, right? And you don't see these people get on there and say, we need to change the family courts or anything like that. They still want the prize to be the female in the relationship. And they'll complain that we're not getting married and we're not going to school or we're not doing, all that's true, right? But what they're really doing is still keeping the ceiling for the people on their side. These people don't live in the inner cities. They complain and complain and complain about all this stuff, but they all live in white areas. Highest income in areas. They don't have to worry about what happens to the people that watch Nick, or they're living in Chicago or in Detroit or St. Louis or in New Orleans or something like that. And a lot of them happen to be black as well. They don't understand what that means because they didn't grow up in it, all right? So they sit there and say, we're going to call them this, 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 and this. And why are these boys actually listening to them? Is there something wrong? Is it the economy? Can we do something about it? Well, I would just say a very, very simple things, 3 or 4 things that I would have to say. Men are not that, what's the word? We're not, I want to say we're simple creatures because we're not. We have emotions. I think in a lot of ways, I think we actually feel emotions more than women do. But I will just say this. A man wants respect, loyalty, and probably, what's the other word people like to use? I'm going to say, not access. Men don't want, men want to be desired. That's it. You would have to be respect, um, admired, desired, loyalty. These are what men need. We don't necessarily have to have a model in the kitchen, right? We need somebody that when a woman looks at us and you can see in their eyes that they admire us or they respect us. That's like fuel to men, and there's a part of that submissiveness is right. Um, Not to say that we own them, but to understand that yes, we provide for them, and that's ours, right? We're going to make sure that nothing happens to them. And that's the generational thing that me and Nick are probably a little bit different on right now. But again, he's grown up in this, so he's like he knows how the game is actually played. And a lot of guys on the right that are very knowledgeable and smart like Nick don't ever get married, or they do it later in life, or a lot of them happen to be gay. So that's been a claim about Nick. So these guys don't get married till late, or they don't ever have, and they don't reproduce. So we don't have these type of higher IQ people reproducing. So until these women who think that they're influencers and they talk about what's wrong with young men, well, maybe you should just say this is how it is. This is what feeds young men. We need goals. We need to be respected. We need to be desired by the people we're with, the girl that we're with. We want that woman to be loyal. I'm not saying you have to sit there and hit us on the back, on the back, when we ever do a good job, but in a lot of ways we are that way. And a lot of that might have been early on in our lives there was a time, whether it's true or not, that mothers would actually reward the boys a little bit more than the girls, right? And I think that made men that got older, they expected their women to be the same way as their mom, okay? There might be some societal type of thing there, but it's something that men actually need. We need to know that what we're doing, that we're valued in a relationship, whatever that means, right? We have to have that, because without it, we just go off the rail. I think the generational thing is, I think Nick is saying that we don't necessarily need that anymore. That we don't have to be the provider and protectors anymore because things have changed. And he talks about that these people are telling all these young men to go to trade schools, and then they'll never go into politics. And this is Nick's whole thing. I think is now to have a political movement, and he has to have people to be in the levels of power to change the stuff. And I get that. However, I would never say that going to trade school is a bad thing, especially if you go to the trade school and you make your own company, and then you have power in the community and you can do stuff like that. And if you want to run after that, a lot of people do this. They have their own companies and then they run for local stuff, councilman and all that stuff all the way up, and they might do something nationally after that. There are different ways to get to what we're talking about. You can have somebody that's America first, that you might call a groyper, that can still be somebody who didn't go to college. And I think that I don't understand that, because he only was in college for about a minute. So he's never going to go back, I don't think. And he is the leader of the movement. So I think that was kind of different, kind of weird for him to say that. I think it's a good thing. I know what he's saying, because he says, just go ahead and do that, and then have a lot of babies, and then you be slaves for the rest of your life, and you'll never be able to change anything nationally. I get all that. I do. But you're not going to have 1 million people trying to do this stuff. These are going to be talented people that are going to be voices of the voiceless. And that's what Nick does, and he wants to have foot soldiers that are going to do that, and people are going to be like him doing the same thing. And I think in his mind is that you have to go to these elite universities to be there, so you can have their way in there. And I get that, because we have so much when it talks about nepotism at that level. It's like Tucker Carlson's son is now with JD Vance. That's how it works. That's how the elites work. Once you have the money and become part of the elites, this is what you do, and you stay up here. They talk about India having a caste system. We have it here in the United States as well. It's based on the money that you have, the connections that you have. So this is how he does. He gets up, and basically the thing I'm doing, he'll just sit there and he goes around and around to get to a point, and then he goes on to his news. And I understand what he's saying. I do, 100%. But we have to have different avenues and opportunities when you're a young man. If you don't have the fortitude or whatever to be in college, especially how college is right now, that it's so so far to the left, even though we're trying to change things. Maybe you don't have that, but you're good with your hands. We can't just all of a sudden we're just everybody go to college, right? We have to have young men that are smart men. They could start their own businesses, USA-owned businesses, small businesses become bigger businesses, and have this power in the local community. And then whatever I said, take it from the next level. Like he said, go on the school board. That's a big problem. That's a big issue. We need to, and my wife said this all the time, take care of your own family and spread it out there. Your community, that's how you have to do that as well. You just can't sit there and say from the federal level. I mean, that's why I don't understand what he's talking about here, because I don't think he's that type of guy that it's going to all change from up here. It has to happen. This idea of what it means to be American has to be at the lowest level and come up, right? You can have leaders up there, but that movement has to come from up here and go up. And he talks about it all the time. He compares himself differently from Tucker. His mom and dad worked for their lives. His dad was on a toll booth guy in Chicago. He comes from basically middle class. These are the type of people that we want to come up and into the movement and to do things about it. And you have to have this. And not all these people are good to go to college. They're just not. And I don't understand what he's doing with that. And I know obviously it'll never happen. If I ever had a whole lot of money because that's the other thing I'm going to talk about before I get off of that, which is kind of interesting to me, but not shocking. If I had the money, I would love to sit down and have this conversation with him. And, whether he wants to respect that or not, I know sometimes he looks at people like me in my age group. He doesn't think that we're part of the movement. We clearly are. And the people who are going to give him money in this thing he's put together are going to be people from my age group. So, just saying. I know there's nothing wrong with being in a trade thing, working on gas or as a plumber or at HVAC. If you don't just be a worker your entire life, if you say, you know what, I'm going to go to the next level and I'm going to own this thing, and then you're going to see my name on everything around the state and the county. I'm going to be supporting Girl Scouts or baseball, or you're going to see my name, and then I'm going to get to a point where people have my name. Hey, you know what, I'm going to run for representatives locally, and then I'm going to go to the state level, and I'm going to go to the federal level. We can do that. The groupers can do that as well, Nick. We don't have to go to college. We don't have to be part of the elite. We don't have to be part of the skull and bones. We can do it as well. That's how the Congress used to be. Obviously, certain things it wasn't, but there was time that it was like that. People didn't go to college to be representatives, and that's really what that was about. It wasn't really the senator so much, but the representatives were just the common man. Now again, these were all people that owned businesses and had money, okay? And that you're going to have that as well. But certainly a guy can get that, working on HVACs for 5-10 years and said, now I put all that away, I'm going to get a new one and I'm going to put my name into it and I'm going to do this and I'm going to make millions of dollars a year, which you can. So I think that's just, I don't know what that is. I don't, when he talks about do this, it's a little bit off for me. Now, before I go, I just want to talk about, he's been talking about this NGO he's starting, or nonprofit, let's say, NPO. And it's interesting now because we're starting to see some of the stuff with Charlie Cook and their nonprofit, and it looks like maybe some money is not being taken care of, and that's always been a problem. Doge, when they looked at that, we found out there's probably billions and billions and billions of dollars that these guys have been getting stuff from the government. Money, we don't know where it's at. This is the one thing I could think that Nick could really lose a lot if he does this and does it wrong. If he employs somebody to take care of that, like accountant or something like that, and they start skimming off the top, if he gets donations from the wrong type of people. I don't know what that means. I mean, you have to be, he's trying to be more mainstream, right? And what he said today, he's been saying the same things for the last 10 years, and he has. But he doesn't do the trolling as much. Not on his show anymore. He might do it on different podcasts, but he's more focused now. And I basically called on him to do on that. Again, he probably didn't get my video for that, but it was time for him to be more mature. If he's going to be a leader of an actual political movement, he kind of has to be that way. He could still be Nick. He's one of the greatest of my lifetime. And again, I'm not going to just sit there and just believe everything he has to say. I'm going to call him out when I think that's necessary, and I would do it to his face. This is what I'm supposed to do as an older man, right? Sometimes young men have to be checked, right? And he checks us all the time. So that's fair. He talks about it today about hierarchy and all that stuff, that young men have to be risk takers and let edgelords and all that stuff. And I agree 100%. If you don't have that in your life, you're not really a man. And then he said what we've done is that they've changed paradigm, that really what you're supposed to do is just have a soulless life by having kids and just get home at night and worship the woman. It's just somebody who's not been married, somebody who doesn't have any kids. Sometimes when he goes down that road, again, it's generational, and I get it. When I was single, I thought the same way in a lot of ways. I get what he's trying to say, but he has to understand that the most valuable thing a man does is to be the protector of his family. And that's I don't understand. That's a nuclear family. I don't understand why he was kind of like going there. I understood it. I understand because the women have changed their roles in the last 40 years. I understand that. So as men, we have been simps, and we've allowed it to happen. We've been cucks, and we've allowed it to happen. We got to change what it happens to be in the family, as the man is the leader and the woman is supposed to be submissive, and the person that makes sure that the next is taking care of the kids and everything like that. That's how it has to be done if we're going to go back to where we were before, okay? And it's very difficult because everything's pushed us to the other thing, and men have been programmed to be that way now. Now men are starting to change, and that's why these women on the traditional, they say the traditional, conservative sides, when they weren't conservatives, these were all Democrats that became on this side, because the Democrats went so crazy. So now Timmy Laren, Cindy Watson, Menon Kelly. The only one that's actually OG kind of understand it is Pearl Davis, although she's kind of crazy sometimes. I think her brain is not there all the time. But getting back to what Nick's doing about this nonprofit. He was talking about getting donors, and they're going to do some things, and documentaries, and we're going to do all this stuff. We're going to be hiring people. And I know that's the next step, and he says it's going to be the next step, and I get that. But he has to be very, 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 very careful. He's going to have a real investigation of those who are coming into his system, because as he gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and he will. He's not going to go down in power or in popularity. He's not. He is the future of if there's going to be an actual GOP, he is the future, or people like him are the future. I don't think he's been soiled so much from what he said in the past. I mean, again, these are things that George Carlin would say, the comment comedians back then. Like I said, there were many times that we had these conversations, actual conversations on daytime shows. Donahue, they would talk about the Holocaust and stuff like that Nick has an issue with, just the narrative of it all. But again, it's always like when men actually start standing up. It's like Matt Walsh talked about this and what's called man keeping. And this might be a different video, but it is. We've been told now for 20, 30 years that men need to be more emotional, have to open up their feelings to the women that they're with. And now they've changed it to the other thing now, that now women have to man keep their men, because men are too emotional, and it's all free, unpaid labor by just sitting there and listening to their men. And what they do then is saying, they think that they're basically their mother. So when the whole society says, hey, I want a nice guy, and I want him to be emotional with me and open up to me, why don't you open up to me? And then when men do it, women will use it to weaponize against their men. But now they're going to do this other thing now. See, no, you're not a real man. And now I have to listen to this? I can't listen to this. I can't deal with this. My brain will blow up if I have to hear this, because I can't take your shit and put it on me. Where guys been doing this in the table, knitter table for 60 years, where women just throw their shit on them and men have to take care of that. We didn't write a whole fucking thing about it. So these are the same women that would say the same shit. These are the traditional women, right? Oh, I want you to be open up. Oh, I want a woman like that. I want a man like that. No, fuck you. All you gotta do is look the women that are on the apps. You can see how they sleep, how they actually, what they choose. They choose the same fucking people that they've always picking. Guys are tall, look like bad boys, shit like that. That's what excites them. Not the guy that's gonna be at home at 5 o'clock after work, the guy that's gonna get up early in the morning to go to work, The guys are going to take care of the kid. They don't care about that. They want they want their attention. They want their vanity. They want to be somewhat submissive by these alpha, what they think are alpha men, and they just look at the other guy. They're almost like part of their not the tribe, harem, right? It's like they're almost like friend zones. They have the men. Some of these husbands are basically friend zones, and meanwhile they're on everything. They're watching these romantic movies, and they're just talking about all this shit. And if he had any opportunity, they would definitely find someone like that online and have sex with them. They would, but they say we're the ones that cheap all the time. I'm going off tri-tac, and I'm talking for a long time here. The point I'm trying to make is that I'm with almost everything Nick said today, and I would just ask you guys to watch it, see if maybe I didn't see what he's saying. I think I do, but when he brings up the generational stuff, and of course you want to defend us a little bit, right? I know, my generation is kind of like different than his generation, but again, my son is the same age as him. I know the struggle he goes through. And the reason why I'm a griper or somebody that supports it is because I understand what my son has to go through. I understand how men are, and as you get older in life, Nick will understand as well. When you sit there and say that somehow it's a bad thing to have kids when you're young, even though you might be struggling financially, and then you want to say that's something wrong. I don't think it's wrong, right? I think that these are things that we can do better, and we can mentor our kids. And if you're not good enough to go to college, I'm not going to say good enough to go to college, but if you're better with other things, you should not just say going to trade school is bad. It's not. It can be used as something even more powerful. Anyway, I'm going to stop right there. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll talk about it there. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you all later.